great to see you. Here we are. This is the last day of 2021. We've made it. Woo! I just feel like it's just been one giant continual year, right? But yes, here we are. I thought I would do this video where I would talk about the reviews for some of the books I've read that were from my November, December TBR, and some updates on what is to come once again. So let's just jump right on in. The first book that was on my TBR was Five Little Indians by Michelle Good. This was an incredible read. I commend her on creating a fantastic book to get us all caught up again. It was about five individuals, Kenny, Lucy, Clara, Howie, and Maisie, following their journey as they were taken from their families and were required to do schooling at this church-run residential school. And it's basically about their journey from that school, looking back, as they reinvent themselves and create these relationships and bonds, as well as the impacts that the school had had on them. That includes things like sexual abuse, and then later on alcoholism, drugs, just negative impacts on each of their individual lives. She did a great job at showing how some of these negative experiences impact some decisions as adults. It humanizes the individuals that go through these events, such as, being incarcerated or, taking drugs, or streetwalkers on the street, or there's probably better ways of saying that, I'm sorry. Or, people who just kind of fall in and fall out, who are never there to raise their kids, or, dealing with alcoholism. It really humanizes these individuals going through this pain and suffering, especially in this context where some of these, if not all of these, really do impact a lot of Indigenous communities, and I can't speak for every community, of course. We're seeing that humanity, especially with this group, where there was a requirement, and this takes place in Canada, just to give you a little bit more context. They had required at the age of 6 to have these individuals immediately attend school. A lot of times these schools were church-run, or I'm not sure if also government-run was included in this as well in Canada, but that was something that happened in the United States. But nonetheless, she did a really great job depicting through these characters the traumas that come from what they experienced at the school. It was negative, it was bad, and being able to kind of catch all the different conditions, I would say, that maybe you wouldn't have been able to do if it was just one character, because one character probably wouldn't have experienced all of these things all at once. Maybe they would have, I don't know, but I think it was really great of her to use all these different characters and seeing them interweave with each other within the community as time goes on. And it was so heartbreaking, really. We did get some hope with some of the characters. Other characters, they succumbed. I don't know if this is a spoiler alert. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but succumbed essentially to those traumas, or at least, things that they used to cope with those traumas. Wow, it was incredible. I mean, what else can I say? I would say this too, is that she did also use this to kind of catch in some of the movements that were happening, some of the protests that were happening in the United States. There was one where they occupied Alcatraz to protest rights for Indigenous communities, and there were many others that she just touched on. And so I actually think it's great that she was able to connect that. And like I said, I think some of this, because she had worked with different groups and communities, and she actually ended up obtaining a law degree to further work within these Indigenous communities and organizations. So she's an incredible individual. And so she has had a lot of experience with individuals who have gone through a lot of this trauma, who have a lot of this history. And so I would definitely, I could see it being interweaved in this. I believe what the characters have gone through, none of it feels pushed or fabricated by any means. It's so heartbreaking. But there's also this like hope and resilience too with some of the characters. So you get all of those emotions wrapped into this as it tells experiences that you can definitely get that feeling that they were real people that have gone through this. And obviously there's real accounts of people who have gone through this. It's tough because I think when ranking books, it can be difficult because I would give a 5 out of 5 automatically for content that she's written, bringing awareness to a lot of the troubles, the issues, the frustrations with Indigenous communities in Canada, as well as I would say definitely in the United States. And seeing those relationships even across the border between Indigenous communities, which I would say that is, I mean, it's beyond 5 out of 5, right? I mean, we need to know about this. We need to talk about it. And also, if you've seen in the last couple of years, some of this has been coming out, especially with some of the church-run schools in Canada, with unmarked graves, things like that. And so there is a lot right there to unpack and bring awareness to. I commend her for stepping out, using that knowledge and experience that she had with these communities and individuals, and using writing as a tool to have these discussions, to start these discussions. Now I want to be able to research and learn more about, the protests that happened, in the 60s, because I feel like I never learned about any of that, like in school, no one talked about the Indigenous communities and what struggles they had, even within the United States, and of course abroad, because there's Indigenous communities international, right? So I commend her. It's 5 out of 5 and beyond for bringing awareness to that, especially at a time like this where we're having these discussions and talking about it. So yes, I definitely recommend this book. Now, in terms of the writing techniques that she used, I was a little confused because I noticed that she had switched between, I think it's tenses, where we were in third person. And then there were certain instances within the book where it switched to first person. Now, with 2 of the instances that did switch to first person, they were their own chapters. So it was much easier to be like, okay, we're switching perspective. And I think her logic was to bring us into feeling that first person experience within the character, especially since those 2 chapters were very poignant in both of those characters' lives, because it switches between different characters every single chapter. You're kind of jumping around, and even time itself is elongated. This is something that's not happening over a week. This is happening over a lifetime of these characters, and it's not very apparent. There's kind of glimpses of that, and you're like, oh wait, okay, now I get it. It's been years from now, or things like that, which I actually I'm good with. I think that's fine. But then there was a point where in the middle of a chapter, it was third person. This was near the end. And then it switched to first person. And I know why she did that. It makes sense in the story. I don't want to spoil anything. But at the same time, it felt a little jarring. And I wondered if maybe that instance specifically could have been just separated into a separate chapter, maybe, because that at least allows you to be able to, okay, say, all right, this is the end of a chapter, okay, now to the next chapter. But this just happened in the middle of the chapter, which, like I said, was a little jarring, but maybe that was the point. So I don't know. That's why for me it was kind of maybe a 4.5 out of 5, because I think I see her intention with it, but because the way it happened and at the times that it happened in the book just felt a little strange. Maybe that, but like I said, I think I definitely commend her on using different tenses. I think that's fun. I don't even want to say that's fun because this is a very serious topic, but I think it does allow us to personalize those experiences within ourselves. When you're reading it, you find yourself saying, oh my word, you're really becoming that character in that moment. And it makes those serious experiences very emotional. So I definitely would say that. I guess going back to some of the abuse that they mention and the experiences, and it's also kind of generational too, which you'll see. They aren't super graphic. She's not super graphic about it. She alludes to it, but she's not getting really depicting anything or anything, which I think is good, because at the end of the day, it's not about the detailed information, because some authors do that, and I think that would have ruined this book, or at least it'd been like, why, it just feels unnecessary. But I think she touches on those experiences, which is good enough. That's good. It makes sense within the story. So I commend her for that also, because I think I've read other books where it starts to get too graphic, and I'm like, it's taking away from, I think, the overall message of the book, and you're just like, no, this isn't working. But here, I think she did a great job in just alluding to it, so that you're seeing that. So I think, like I said, overall, it's a 5 out of 5 for me. And I also want to drop in a documentary that I found that you'll have to check out, because it's about the church-run schools in Canada and its effects on these communities. It was done by DW. I will put a link in the bio for you to watch. Please watch it. It's very powerful. I found myself pausing it multiple times. I was crying. I was frustrated, because it's very personal. As someone who's Indigenous, this is very personal, and so I definitely recommend that documentary as well, and I recommend this book as well. So check out Five Little Indians by Michelle Good, and the documentary, which I'll link down below. And yeah, so very, very intense reading, but I'm very excited to have read it. I think it's been wonderful and life-changing. So I guess going back to why I chose this because November was Native American Heritage Month in the United States, and so that's why I selected this pick. The next book that I chose was The Nutcracker and the Mouse King. It was a graphic novel. The original text, I looked this up, the original text is still from E.T.A. Hoffman. It has been modernized in this version. This illustration was done by Natalie Andrewson. Here is the cover. Yeah, it's we're in a different world now after that very serious book. This is the exact opposite. And I chose this for Christmas, which of course just happened about a week ago from now, which is crazy. I thought it'd be fun because I actually have never read The Nutcracker, as I've mentioned before. I only know the ballet and the adaptation for that, which actually I watch it throughout the year, but off and on. But I definitely watch it at Christmas time. I really enjoy the musical score. It's very beautiful that Tchaikovsky created for the ballet. So I highly recommend all of that. And especially I recommend the adaptation by a British choreographer. I can't remember his name now, and I'll write it down, I guess, in the comments down below, or in the description below, excuse me, who created the one that I like. There's also the Balanchine version, which is very popular in the United States. I think it's okay, but I'll get into like the different versions as I talk about it. But this version was based on the original version. Like I said, the text was modernized, but the content was the same. So we still get the overall vibe from this graphic novel, which I commend Natalie for doing. Look at these illustrations. They are so beautiful. I did check this out from the library. I checked almost all these books out from the library. But I just wanted to give you a feel really quick of some of the illustrations. Look at this table of contents, how beautiful that is. Because this was a graphic novel, I just wanted to share some of these whimsical, beautiful illustrations. Look at that. She made Marie. There's Marie and her brother, but Marie is really the center of the story. Look at that. And it was really good. It was really interesting to read the original story. Look at this. This is so beautiful. So the story starts off with Marie Stahlbaum. So we still have, these are like the original characters, right? And she's a little girl who they have this godfather, Drosselmeyer. So a lot of these characters are the same between adaptations. There is Clara Stahlbaum, but I'll get into that because in the original, Clara was a doll not a family member, if you will, of the Stahlbaums, which I think is fascinating. But it starts revolving around Marie. It's Christmas time. They get gifts from Drosselmeyer, but she finds this Nutcracker. She falls in love with him. It's not like the ballet where she then goes into this dream. This whole fight sequence between the Nutcracker and the Mouse Kings happens, and then they end up in this fairyland, and they retell the story. There's this whole event, and then she ends up back at her house. That's the ballet version. And her name's Clara in that one, so it got changed to Clara. She still has the brother Fritz and their family, and Drosselmeyer is still a character in this. But in this, the original version, we still have the family. We have Fritz, of course, still, and he's still like the same character, but instead of Clara, it's Marie. Here, she still has the vision that happens in the ballet, but what happens is she wakes up and she's hurt after the battle because of shards of glass. The storage case that held the Nutcracker and the whole event, she got cut by the glass that broke from that, and she had to stay in the bed, and Drosselmeyer would come and the family would come visit her every day. As she was healing, he would start telling them the story about this faraway land. So, like I said, the story doesn't feel fully linear, but it kind of is, because the story that he tells ends up being the world that the Nutcracker is from. The Nutcracker was escaping. I don't know if I can spoiler alert any of this, because this book has been around forever. But nonetheless, we basically half the story is her trying to heal, and every night being threatened by the Mouse King. And then eventually we get to the end where they're finally victorious against the Mouse King. They end up going to the magical land. So there's that connection to the ballet at that point. And the whole family ends up getting to go and get to explore this. And you find out that the Nutcracker was hiding as a toy as a Nutcracker because he was supposed to help break the curse of this princess in the land, and that's why and the curse came because of this mouse that claimed royalty blood, lived in that castle in that world, was banished because her and her children, which had like crowns, took I think it was some kind of fat or bacon or something off of the oven. And the queen was like, no, you can't do that. And they banished her. And then she's like, I'm going to come back and get you. And then she bit the child, the daughter, the princess. I don't know if this makes any sense to anyone, but became ugly. And then there was like this whole journey. So there was just a lot going on, even though when I think back at the overall story setup, it makes sense. But I think it was a little weird because we felt like half the time she was just like sitting in bed. So she was like the main character, but then she kind of wasn't. It was really strange. But I'm definitely glad to have read it. The illustrations are beautiful, incredible. Natalie Anderson has done a wonderful job, so I highly recommend this version. It's very beautiful. Like I said, the story's a little dark. Especially where the Mouse King and Mouse Rinks was the lady that claimed royal blood, the mice that lived in this castle, the lineage. That part was kind of dark, and like how the Mouse King kept like threatening Marie every night, saying you have to do this so that you can spare the Nutcracker's life, which was like super crazy and a little dark and creepy. So I definitely wasn't a huge fan of that. In the story content, I think the illustrator did a wonderful job. So the only thing though I would say that confused me, Natalie, was the switching back and forth between 4-fingered hands and 5-fingered hands. It's a really strange thing, right? But I happened to notice that, and I'm like, oh, I wish they had all had either consistently 4 fingers, for the humans, or at least 5 fingers, especially since this is illustrated. It's like, because it's not like a cartoon's like, it's a series of sequences, or it's different now, but a lot of times you'll see that flipping back and forth, or it's just one or the other. In this case, I would say I wish that Natalie had committed to either 5 fingers or 4 fingers consistently. That was like really strange to me. I couldn't unnotice after that. But I mean, aside from that, it's incredible. She did a fantastic job. And I feel like even though I mentioned that, I still would say this is a 5 out of 5 for sure. I feel like I'm being so just generous with 5 out of 5s. But, or maybe, okay, so this is it. I'll give her a 5. It'll be multiple leveled. So 5 out of 5 to the illustrator. She did a wonderful job. I think it's beautiful. I would give the story a 4 out of 5 because of the fact that I feel like half the story is Marie not being active in the story. She's just kind of like healing. Like there's these moments, but I don't know. It felt really strange, and it had a different tone like halfway through the story. It was almost like the Princess Bride movie. I don't know if the novel's like this, but the movie itself where like the kid's just like trying to heal, and there's like this person that keeps coming and like telling the story, but it's like, okay, I'll come back the next day. Like it totally was that in the middle of the story. And that was a little weird. So I would definitely give the story, I think, 4 out of 5. I think overall it is fun. It's very whimsical. Like I said, I think this is dark. Like I definitely enjoy the ballet version over this one. Just because I feel like it's more clear in the story progression and line, which I think it has to be because it's a ballet. So I definitely think that's stronger as a result than maybe the way this story is. This is just on ETA Hoffman, right? So I definitely give that a 4 out of 5. Okay, so I guess let's also just deviate a little bit and talk about the different versions, right? So there's the original version. I definitely recommend people read the original version because it's really interesting, and I think it fills in the cracks for the other stories. So it really does give you more depth to the characters, like in the ballet, and then as well as the other version that I know of is the Nutcracker in the Four Realms, the one that Disney did back in 2018 or 2019. I can't remember. I think it was 2018. There was Marie Stahlbaum and her husband, but she dies and she leaves this egg with a specific lock mechanism without a key, where Clara, who's the daughter, has to go find, and she goes on this whole adventure. Drosselmeyer's still there. It's actually played by Morgan Freeman, which is fun, and I wish there was more of that character in the story, but he wasn't really there, which made me sad. But she goes on this adventure to go look for this key because it ended up being a present from him to her, because dun dun dun, Drosselmeyer was basically the father to Marie Stahlbaum, because Marie Stahlbaum was orphaned, which I think is interesting because, like I said, it's a twist from this story where the parents are there. Anyway, she goes on this whole adventure through this wardrobe. Also, that is something that happens in this book, in the story. Wardrobes apparently were magical in the UK or something. I don't know. I think of C.S. Lewis and the line The Witch in the Wardrobe. The magical land beyond the wardrobe. Same thing here, everyone. So wardrobes apparently are magical. Or portals to another world. She goes through the wardrobe, essentially. But in this case, in the Fourth Realm movie, she ends up just going down this hallway. And I think that's how she ends up in this dark tunnel. And then she ends up in the Fourth Realm. Which I don't know if I should spoil it, but nonetheless, it's definitely a different take, and the concept is that Marie created that world. Sorry if I spoiled it. He had a couple of years, right? No, but it turns out that Marie was a great inventor and very clever, and so she invented this world. While it's here, it's like it's just a world that is beyond, and when I don't think it mentions anyone creating it, it just is, or maybe Drosselmeyer created it, but nonetheless, it's a world they all visit. But in the Fourth Realm one, it really breaks down different realms, which doesn't exist in this book. None of the realms and none of the special lands do not exist in the original story. That is a new concept that was brought into the ballet and was brought into the Nutcracker in the Four Realms. In the ballet, they're supposed to be dolls. If you've watched it, you'll know what I'm talking about when you end up at the castle and they have the different dances, like the Russian dance and the Arabian dance and the Spanish dance and the Chinese dance, and the caricatures for the dolls feel a little racist, or just they don't feel right in that regard. So that's a thing. That's a downside of the ballet, right? Especially I think the time period, but even today we still get some of that in the costuming, which feels uncomfortable. I would probably give the ballet maybe a 3 out of 5 for that reason. I think the rest of it's really nice, so that's frustrating. The music's 5 out of 5. The music is really good. And then the Nutcracker and the Four Realms, that was controversial because a lot of people didn't like the performances that were done by the characters. They felt like the characters developed too quickly, which I can understand. I think a lot of people gave that a 3 out of 5. I would probably give it a 3 or 4 out of 5. I think I definitely see where people were talking about. But I liked the colorful, whimsical aspect. I do understand the concept of the whole story, which I like. I think it was just the delivery and execution that didn't work as well. So I definitely agree on that. I think the original novel, I think I gave it a 4 out of 5. So a lot of this is like 3 to 4 out of 5. I don't know if it's necessarily revolutionary and groundbreaking. It probably was at that time, which I'll definitely, I mean, there you go. I mean, it's a classic, right? But nonetheless, here we are. But it's really good. I definitely recommend. Definitely see the ballet if you haven't. I recommend the one from the Royal Ballet in the UK. I like that version a lot more than the Balanchine because there is some variation. But I definitely choose that one because I think the costuming is really beautiful. Like I said, there may actually be controversy with some of the costuming. I need to go rewatch it and see. But which is a little problematic, especially since this ballet occurs every year up to 2021. So, and then we also got the Nutcracker and the Four Realms. And that one, I mean, it's still good. It's very beautiful, you know, and I still enjoy it. I'll watch it off and on. But, yeah. And, I do want to say this before I leave this review, is the music, specifically the pas de deux. I totally screwed that up. It's French. I'm sorry. That's very beautiful. It's like one of my favorite songs from that ballet as a whole. I love coming back to that one. It's very beautiful. You need to check it out. I highly recommend it. They did it in a way for the movie that I thought was really beautiful. Like I said, this is a little spoiler alert. At the end, she comes back because they're all grieving because their mother passed away and she wasn't there for Christmas. It's the first Christmas after she passed. Clara comes back from the world and she meets her dad. Her dad was like, you know, you were supposed to dance with me this evening because it was this whole party and you didn't. She finally opened the egg and the song in the egg was the pas de deux, but it's like the music box version, which is so beautiful. And I just was like, oh, and then they're like, okay, let's dance, you know, just the two of them, the father, daughter. And I was like, oh my word, this is so beautiful. I just loved that moment, the way it was done, because pas de deux, it was very big and triumphant in the ballet, but here it's more intimate, more, you know, quiet, but beautiful and strong in that way. So go Tchaikovsky for being awesome. Also, I want to say from the movie, I loved the Lang Lang versions of all the songs. Lang Lang is a famous classic pianist, piano player. He's incredible at what he does. You got to check out his work. But also, he did piano versions, or was a soloist on this soundtrack for a lot of the songs from the original Tchaikovsky's, and it's so beautiful. So, Tchaikovsky's music, sorry. Very beautiful renditions. So check out all these different versions. Read the original. See what you think. Like I said, I think it really informed and helped me understand the characters that we see in the ballet, as well as the Nutcracker and the Four Realms. Even though they're adaptations, you're like, oh, like their origin stories actually really kind of help you understand the backstories and where, you know, why was the Mouse King attacking? Now you know why in the original story. And like I said, I think the Nutcracker and Four Realms was different. Highly recommend it, definitely. Okay, so to the books that I didn't complete for 2021. So Cloud Cuckoo Land by Anthony Doerr. I mentioned back in November that I was going to complete it and I was going to talk about it. I haven't even started it. That just happens, right? There's just a lot going on. But my book club delayed it, so I was like, I'm going to delay it too. So I delayed it, and here we are now. So I am going to be starting this one probably at the start of the new year, which is crazy because we also have, dun 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 dun, as you all know from the last couple videos, I am doing a book club for at least this first quarter. I said for the whole year, but we're going to try it in the quarter and see how it goes first. But, of course, so I have this one that I gotta read. And then, for the book club, have The Island of Missing Trees by Elif Shafak. Like I said, I'm sorry if I pronounced them wrong. But we're gonna be reading this. And also, Sankofa by Chibundu Onuzo. Like I said, I apologize if I'm totally screwing up these names. I'm so sorry. We're reading these for the book club, for the one on my channel. I hope you join me. I think it's gonna be great. Like I said, I think starting on, it's not the 8th, but it will be the following Saturday after that. That will be a read with me where we start reading them together. Then not the next Saturday after that, but the one following, the last Saturday of the month, we're going to do maybe a reading and discussing of these books. And I'll also announce what the February book selection will be. But I hope you join. So I've got like at least 3 books floating around in the mix for January. But I am excited about this book club. I hope you join me. I am going to be doing the live chat for subscribers only, just so you're aware. I thought I would make that clear so that not anyone can just come in and post randomly on the instant chat for those streams, but has to be a subscriber for at least a couple of days in advance. So just to give you aware, if you are going to join for this book club, please do that ahead of time so you're able to connect with the whole group of us. But feel free to, make sure you're subscribed and hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything. I'm going to be doing the book club, but I'm also going to be doing writing sprints on the other Saturdays that aren't the read with me's. You can see all the scheduled upcoming streams on my channel, and come write with me, come read with me, come work on other projects. Some of the other content that I'm planning as well for Q1 is the just other crafts that I'm working on, like works in progress is what I'm going to call it, as well as doing a video where I check in on my Spanish learning. As it's kind of like an accountability, but also just to share my process of learning this language, really kind of honing it in, because I have a general grasp of it. I can follow people's conversations, and I'm getting better at creating conversations, but I definitely have a lot of work still cut out for me. I've noticed there's a lot of vocab that I need to still learn, really just continuously practicing. So this is kind of a way to share it with all of you, but also keep myself accountable for my learning, because I've been especially in the last 2 years, I've been very sporadic with it. So I'm like, okay, this year it's all about that. Back to the reading, because this is all about reading, right? This video. These are the books that I am going to be reading for January, so you can see them one more time. A Cloud Cuckoo Land, Sankofa, and The Island of Missing Trees. So I hope you join on any of these. For Cloud Cuckoo Land, I do want to mention that I will do like a review video for that at some point, either in January or in February, just because that one is not in the book club. But nonetheless, I hope you join me for all of these wonderful adventures, and I hope that you have a safe New Year's Eve, New Year's Day, and let's do it. Let's do 2022. Let's get to reading, writing, crafting, whatever we are interested in. Let's just do it. Woo! But have a wonderful day, and stay safe, take care, and everything in between.